When it comes to tailgating, you're in a league of your own, so you gotta pick a bun that plays at the same level. Ballpark Buns, otherwise known as America's favorite buns, always deliver the goods. Find Ballpark Buns near you at ballparkbuns.com.
Listen up, people. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know, our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcastopinions.com and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcastopinions.com.
Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is presented by ZipRecruiter. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy with ZipRecruiter, the highest rated hiring site in America. And now our listeners can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010.
Welcome into a Football Friday on the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast, and shout out to all of you that are watching us on the Twitter live stream. Field Yates, Matthew Berry, and Star Fanya Bell. What's going on, everybody?
I'm so excited. Football Friday.
Oh, my God. I'm so bitter. Football Friday.
It took you all of one day for Matthew
No,
Berry.
yeah. I went against Ajayi in a few leagues. I have Devontae Freeman in the War Room League. Oh, yeah. Oh, make no mistake. America, in case you were worried that I'd forgotten about it, I will somehow make this all about
Not
me.
only America, but all of our international fans. And no, they weren't worried. But you know what? You know who's happy?
Yeah, but you know
me,
what?
with
Here's
my
the
27 points from Julio Jones.
Yeah. No one likes a bragger here, Stefania. Anyway, Field. So I'm good. It's a good Friday. Lots and lots to get to
Yes,
here.
we do have plenty to get to. That's right. We have a game last night. We'll recap. We, of course, preview every single game, and we will be doing our pigskin pick'em. Again, a reminder, against the spread.
Yeah, and we had our Celebrity League draft last night as well,
which is very fun. And I don't know if we'll have a ton of time to break down that draft during today's show, right, because we have so much to get to. But was a very fun night. And I'm sure we'll be talking about the rosters at length over the course of next week.
Yes, 100%.
Rewind. Fantasy news from the National Football League.
This is the instant replay.
We waited 214 days. And then we waited another 45 minutes because last night's game was delayed because of really crazy weather in Philadelphia. They eventually kicked off at around 9:05 Eastern time. The final score was 18-12. Some people thought this was an ugly game.
Just some people?
Yeah, many thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, probably the people who didn't think it was an ugly game was Doug Peterson, who's happy to get out of there with a win.
Those are Eagles fans. Although Eagles fans were
Eagles fans were booing.
I know.
Eagle fans,
impatient.
you won a Super Bowl.
I know.
And you've had one half of football with a backup quarterback, and you're booing.
Yeah, didn't take long.
Oh my goodness.
Never changed. Never changed.
It was great. In any event, it was an 18-12 final for the Philadelphia Eagles. Another closely contested game between these two teams. Let's begin with Atlanta. And I think really the biggest story from this game last night for Atlanta, Stefania, was that Devontae Freeman left it.
He did, and for a while, most of us, myself included, thought, well, I wonder why they're opting to go completely with Tevin Coleman. They're switching this up here. And it turns out Devontae Freeman has a right knee injury. We don't know anything about the severity. Supposedly he said he was okay after the game, but you never a player in the immediate aftermath of the game. Look, the point is,
that makes me nervous. Honestly, the fact that he said, "Oh, I'm going to be okay," makes me super nervous. I mean, I hope for the best. Obviously, I have him on a team. I root for Devontae Freeman. We never want to see players injured, but
there's more to it than that. I mean, this is a guy who was fighting through a knee issue at the end of last year, and the off season worked very hard to make sure he was 100% healthy coming in, did not play in the preseason for that reason. So to come out and get 3 quarters into it and then have to be out of the game because of it, I'm sure he was frustrated regardless of the severity of the injury. And obviously we'll find out more by next week.
Frustrated not just because of that, but also because, you know what, hey, somebody blocked for him. I thought he actually, when he was out there Field, I thought he looked good. They gave him a number of chances at the goal line. And just, poor blocking down there. I thought it was encouraging if you have Devontae Freeman on your team, is the fact that in the second series, even though he didn't cash in, Tevin Coleman was in the second series and they got into the red zone. And once again, they pulled Tevin Coleman and they gave Freeman the work there. They put Freeman on the field again. They weren't able to cash in. So Fingers crossed on Devontae Freeman.
We'll react more. Unfortunately, we did discuss the idea of like what would life look like without Devontae Freeman for Tevin Coleman on Thursday's podcast. And we said top 10 running back upside, which hopefully for Devontae's sake, we don't see that soon, but keep that in mind as we get into week 2. Julio Jones, by the box score, dominated last night. 10 catches, 169 yards, and 19 targets. Let's put a little bit of context on this. The frustrating part of last night was no touchdown for Julio Jones and some curious play calling from the Falcons, specifically a 4-play sequence, first and goal from the 1, where Julio Jones was not on the field at all, and they threw it on 4th down to Devontae Freeman, who it was an incomplete pass. But basically, you go 4 straight plays without putting the hands in the best playmaker you have.
It was as if he made all the plays going down the field. They wanted to give him a rest, but they forgot to put him back in for one of the. That's how it felt to me.
I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching and questions in Atlanta on the offensive play calling and coaching staff over there after going back and watching the film of this game. 19 targets for Julio. I mean, you can't argue with any of that. 10 for 169, and honestly, probably should have been more because I felt like that was a catch that got overturned.
He
the
had
one
a
that was on his shoulder.
51-yard catch that he caught clearly, and I thought Terry McCauley did a nice job in the booth last night for NBC, and so that was a catch. Stunned, that was not a catch. So Julio could have had 220 yards last night, but he'll settle for 169. The Falcons' red zone offense, we will continue to monitor it. We are not saying that last night was not discouraging. At the same time, 1 game, 1 week, a lot of football left to be played.
By the way, Dan Quinn talking to the media at 3:15 today, so if you're really curious about Devontae Freeman's injury, hopefully we'll get a little update later this afternoon.
Or follow at Stefania_ESPN because ESPN pays her to care about Devontae Freeman. So just go ahead and follow her because I'm sure you will be updating that story as news trickles in. Worth noting that Tevin Coleman, 9 for 19, he cashed in the touchdown. He didn't look particularly effective yesterday, but very tough defense. They play Tampa Bay next week. Things will get better for the Falcons offense.
Jay Ajayi.
I take that back. The Eagles play Tampa Bay next week.
Yeah, I don't know who the Falcons play
they play Carolina. Falcons play Carolina, so it could be a tough start there for the Falcons.
Jay Ajayi had a really quiet first half as the Eagles relied on not just 1 or 2 or 3, 4 running backs played in the first half, and quite a bit for Philadelphia. Ajayi, Darren Sproles, Corey Clement, Wendell Sproles, they all got time. And yet if you looked at last night's box score, you're saying to yourself, yeah, but Jay Ajayi got 20.2 points. He was awesome. In the second half, he was very good. Yep. He had 2 touchdowns. He had a 2-point conversion, 15 carries for 62 yards. Would you say, Matthew, at the end of the night, you were encouraged by the workload for Jay Ajayi, or did last night in any way confirm some of the fears that I had in the preseason that, like, there are so many backs in Philadelphia, it might limit his upside a little bit?
Yeah, I think. Can I answer both?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
I know it was a tale of 2 halves.
It totally was. I mean, honestly, like, I sort of feel like, look, you're excited that he was able to cash in the touchdowns. And by the way, and especially the second touchdown, I mean, it was an impressive run. Sure. So, I mean, so you like to see that it wasn't just, something from the 1-yard line falling into the end zone. But Darren Sproles played more snaps. Corey Clement had 13 snaps in this game. That 11-yard touchdown run was terrific. But you have to wonder, like, rainy weather, Foles doesn't have it, and do you think that Doug Peterson just said, you know what, we're just going to try to run the ball and get out of here and try to limit Nick Foles here? So you're excited about, obviously, the touchdowns there, but yeah, I'm concerned. I think he's the head of a running back by committee.
Yes.
Having said that, I think it's going to be a very productive running back by committee, and I think being the head of that running back by committee, we all had him as a top 20 running back, and I think that's right on Jay Ajayi. I think he's always going to be in that 15 to 23 range, depending on, bye weeks and everything like that. And the matchups, again, as I mentioned, they play Tampa Bay this week, and things will be better for them. That offense, I believe, against the Buccaneers.
If you feel confident in the Eagles as a team, you should feel pretty confident in Jay Ajayi. He is going to be akin to what LeGarrette Blount was for the Patriots for a couple of years there. When they play with a lead, or they play in tight games, or they play to the goal line, he's going to be the guy. But when things were stuck in the mud in the first half, a lot of Darren Sproles, a lot of Corey Clement, I'm still with you. I'm not, I think for the rest of the season, I still like him most amongst Eagles running backs. But yeah, it was a little bit discouraging in the first half for me to see so many other backs getting run.
I will say very quickly that for deeper PPR leagues, Darren Sproles is going to have a significant role on this team, and it's not just as a pass catcher. I mean, they used him in the red zone offense. They used him between the tackles. Like, Ajayi, when you're ranking him, it would be Ajayi, Clement, but Sproles will have PPR value this year.
Did not look like a 35-year-old coming off an ACL tear and a broken forearm.
Did not at all. He is a freak of nature.
He is a freak. Nelson Aguilar led the Eagles with 10 targets last night, 8 catches for 33 yards. Very Jarvis Landry of him, but still effective in PPR scoring. We had a feeling he was going to have a big role because, and seriously, last night, DeAndre Carter, people were like, who is this? DeAndre Carter was the second wide receiver on the field in a lot of snaps for the Philadelphia Eagles. Good to see Aguilar, who I think will continue to play a prominent role, albeit one that has limited upside in terms of yards per catch until Alshon Jeffrey returns, which could be we'll see, in a few weeks.
Yeah, and so it's hard to take a lot away from the Eagles offense there, obviously, with no Carson Wentz, no Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, Ertz got 10 targets as well.
But only 5 receptions. I was a little,
Yeah, it was a tough, listen,
great.
Foles was bad last night.
Right.
He just was. I had to start Foles in a 2-quarterback league, and I played against a guy that had Ajayi. So, yeah, good times there. That's a lot of fun. Pretty sure I'm 0-1 in that league. So anyway, but I don't think you can take a lot away from the Eagles offense based on last night because, again, with the weather, and I do think we'll have a better sense of them next week when they play Tampa Bay.
Introducing the all-new 2019 Acura RDX. It's everything we imagined and then some, featuring a turbocharged 272-horsepower VTEC engine, available super handling all-wheel drive, and a quick-shifting 10-speed transmission. The RDX delivers a whole new level of precision-crafted performance. With available 16-speaker ELS Studio 3D premium audio, Apple CarPlay, our innovative True Touchpad interface with absolute positioning, an Acura Watch advanced safety and driver assistance technology. It's a lot of features. The RDX keeps you connected and in control. Entirely reimagined from the ground up and inside out, the RDX is highlighted by sharp sculpted lines and a low wide stance that hints at the driving experience to be had behind the wheel. Equipped with a standard ultra-wide panoramic roof and available 16-way sport seats, the RDX is redefining the SUV. Visit Acura.com/RDX to learn more and build yours today. And Rob Gronkowski is everything we ever imagined, brought to you by Acura. The Patriots tight end is healthy coming into this season. He is motivated because he has, I believe, $4.05 million available in incentives by becoming a first-team All-Pro and hitting some other escalators as well. Gronk this season is going to feast, Matthew. We have him at number 1 in our tight end rankings every single week. Are you expecting a red-hot start from Gronk against the Texans on Sunday?
Going against the Texans team that allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends last year. Obviously, their defense a lot healthier at the moment than they were for much of last season. New defensive coordinator there as well in Houston, obviously, with Mike Vrabel moving on. But
still largely the same. It's Romeo Crennel, who was the defensive coordinator, basically the same system.
It's basically the same system, but Vrabel won't be there, which I think plays into the Patriots' favor, former Patriot, Vrabel not there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've talked about this somewhat in the preseason in terms of, and Lou Riddick brings this up in terms of how we believe the middle of the field is going to be sort of wide open this year with the new rules. And so to your point about Gronk and all the incentives in his contract, no Julian Edelman as well. It's Hogan and Gronk. I mean, we'll see what we get out of Philip Dorsett in this game, but my expectation is that Rob Gronkowski has a huge year and specifically a huge week 1. I think he is worth the money in DFS if you're playing that format.
We got some good news on the injury front earlier this week, Stefania, because Rex Burkhead had missed much of training camp. He's not just practicing, he's off the injury report.
That's correct. And this was the thing. The Patriots, one thing about them, much as we say they're can be tricky and secretive, they're pretty methodical when it comes to how they manage guys with injuries. You need to see them in full practices by the end of the week. You need to see them doing more and out there early in the week, participating in position drills, etc. And so Rex Burkhead, that was a very good sign when he was out doing the position drills early. And as you mentioned, by the time the late practice reports come in, he's off the injury report. Expect him to be there. Sony Michel is still, I think, getting used to being back with the team, and as a rookie still learning, still on the injury report himself, having dealt with the knee issue.
Wouldn't stun me is even if he was capable of playing on Sunday, if he was inactive just because,
again, there's part of the methodical nature of how the Patriots do things. I would agree.
We'll keep an eye on Michelle, but Rex Burkhead and actually James White both merit top 25 running back consideration this week. Burkhead for all the reasons we laid out, and James White by the way, named a captain yesterday by the Patriots for the first time. He's going to play
congrats.
a ton. You make a note of that only because it's like, you don't make captains guys who don't really play that much, right?
That's true. It's true.
You would think.
I was never captain of any of my teams.
Believe it or not, Matthew, I actually
I'm
can't
shocked by
believe
this.
that. So I think James White could explode this. Explode's too strong of a word. Could be a player that's being drafted as like an RB5 or a back-end RB4 who ends up being a weekly flex player.
I love James White in DFS this week. I think he's going to have a huge game here. Remember, he was top 10 among running backs in receptions per route run last season. 3 receiving touchdowns each of the last 3 seasons. What's going to be interesting for me about this backfield is the role Jeremy Hill has. Does he have anyone?
Yep.
Because talk about wide range of outcomes. It would not shock me if a year from now we're talking about the 15 touchdown season Jeremy Hill had.
Yeah.
It also wouldn't shock me
right.
And it wouldn't also shock me if we're talking about Jeremy Hill who's
playing 3 games and then being cut.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, or Jeremy Hill, New York Giant or whatever, whatever that he's on another team. So just such a wide range of outcomes, but just has by far the most rushing touchdowns of any running back on the Patriots roster.
Stefania, Will Fuller is a little bit banged up for the Houston Texans. What do we know about his status?
Well, he's been dealing with a hamstring injury in the preseason. And again, like most teams, they will play it very conservative. Was on the injury report as limited with the hamstring, but I fully expect that you're going to see an upgrade today. And Will Fuller will be ready to go on game day.
Good news there for him. And of course, Deshaun Watson makes his return as well. So excited to see Deshaun Watson. Remember last year, one of his best games amidst an amazing stretch was in Foxborough against the Patriots. I think that kind of took the Deshaun Watson mystique to a new level. He went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady in a 38-33 shootout.
In Foxborough.
Foxborough.
And I think despite him coming off an ACL reconstruction, he's really had the most run in the preseason of anyone who's coming off this injury. We saw him play, several series in the course of the preseason where you got to see him scramble, you got to see him throw on the run, you got to see him stand in the pocket, like all the things that make him pass the eyeball test as far as recovery. I love it.
And you hate to say this. Yeah, I'm sorry, Phil. I was going to say it's you hate to see say this about somebody, but it almost feels like Deshaun Watson has to prove himself again. Sure. I mean, after everything he accomplished in his rookie season, you hate to have to say that, but the truth of the matter is because he's coming off the ACL, because we expect the Patriots defense to be a lot better than they were last year. They seemed to shore it up towards the second half of the season last year. If he goes into Foxborough again and lights up the Patriots again, I think everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, Deshaun Watson fully back. We are on board with Deshaun Watson. The 3 of us all have him as a top 5 play
we do.
This week.
Remember, so the first half of last season, the Patriots' pass defense was historically poor. So things change year to year, and they feel better about their group this year, but pretty good matchup here for Deshaun Watson. Lamar Miller also inside our top 20 for running backs. Lamar Miller, as I said, he is like the young version of what Frank Gore was, and I don't mean that they're the same style of player, but a guy that will have good volume.
He'll grind it
out. He may not score a ton of touchdowns. He may not have a bunch of 100-yard games, but he'll be good for 20 touches and 85 to 105 total yards within any
And there's no big threat
game.
behind him right now. Dante Foreman's still on the PUP list and recovering from the Achilles injury.
Alfred Blue, just a guy, averaged over 15 points a game in Deshaun Watson starts last year. You would expect they would want to try to control the clock a little bit at Gillette.
They recently worked out Charles Sims. Keeping an eye on that one in Houston. How about the pick in this game? I'll start. This game is being played at Gillette Stadium. Again, we are picking against the spread. The line is 6.5 points. I'll take the Texans. Patriots to win the game. Texans with the points.
It's really interesting because I kind of feel like 7 was the magic number there that would send me over to the Texans side, 7.5. But I'm going to take the Patriots.
Matthew?
Yeah, give me the Patriots.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm taking the Patriots too.
I expect the Patriots to win a closer game than what you guys are expecting.
Correct. I expect them to win by a touchdown here.
That's me.
By
that
a
was a
touchdown.
magic number.
For the record, by the way, I thought the Falcons would cover 3.5 last night, and they did not. So
yeah, we all got that one right.
All right, Chiefs and Chargers, really looking forward to this game as an AFC West showdown that feels like a game that could be perhaps a preview of the 2 best teams in this division. In Kansas City, Stefania, as far as I know, no injuries as well. As a matter of fact, not a lot of injuries around the NFL this week.
Hey, let's enjoy it while we have it, right? Right now, everybody pretty healthy. Yes, Kansas City looks good.
For me, Patrick Mahomes, and I've said this on a few occasions during the podcast preseason, is one of the storylines that I'm most looking forward to this season is what Patrick Mahomes becomes as a player for the Kansas City Chiefs. Certainly as a quote-unquote real quarterback, but also as a fantasy quarterback, because as we know, being a great quarterback and being a fantasy quarterback are not always the exact same thing. There's so much upside here, and the Chiefs feel like a team that could be throwing the ball a ton in the course of any given game. And yet, Patrick Mahomes is 16 in my quarterback rankings this week. The reason is simple. The Chargers' defense is just that good. We'll see if Joey Bosa plays, but presuming he does.
I actually think that there's a decent chance that he doesn't.
So,
which it makes me think a little bit. Guys, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes facing that tough Chargers D. If Joey Bosa's out, it's a foot injury. They're obviously a little more concerned because if you push a foot injury too soon, it could extend deeply into the season.
Listen, four times. Only 4 times last year did the Chargers allow multiple passing touchdowns in a game. I mean, it's one of the best secondaries. It's one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're underrated. They don't get a lot of love. I'm with you, Field. As much as I like Mahomes, as much as I am bullish on a big season for him and the Chiefs offense, he's outside my top 10 for the week, given the strong matchup here against the Bolts.
Certainly we feel like Kareem Hunt is an RB1 this week. He's inside all of our top 10, but it gets more interesting with these Chiefs pass catchers. And same goes for Travis Kelce, by the way. Tyreek Hill is 13 and 15 for me and Matthew. Stefania has him inside her top 10. So you have a lot of confidence there, Stefania.
It's really the Mahomes, like I have Mahomes elevated and Tyreek Hill. I think that matchup, or that combination.
All he needs is one. The Chargers last year were one of the best teams in the NFL at defending the deep ball, and they're certainly going to be aware of what Tyreek Hill is going to try to do.
But the interesting one here, then, I think, is not just Patrick Mahomes.
Expecting to do it and actually doing it are two different things. If there's anyone that can get behind a defense, it's Tyreek Hill.
That's sure. He is faster than Yah.
Yep.
Sammy Watkins, though, is really fascinating, Matthew, because I think that, like sometimes we talk about following the money. He got one of the best deals of the offseason, 3 years and $48 million. What percentage would you give that Sammy Watkins finishes the season as a top 20 wide receiver? 20%?
15.
15%.
10 to, yeah.
There's 12, no right answer, obviously.
Right. 12,
just
15%. Look, I have Watkins on one team, a dynasty team, because I've had him since he was a rookie. And I have him on no redraft teams this year. I ranked him very low. I'm by far the lowest on him, I believe. His consensus ranking's 38.
Yep.
You guys have him in the 30s. I'm at 46. No, maybe. Listen, I'm at 46. We have never seen a number 3 pass catcher in an Andy Reid offense have significant production.
Right.
Now, you can argue they've never had a number 3 pass catcher with the talent of Sammy Watkins.
Sure.
But I need to see that volume. I need to see some success. Look, I think Sammy Watkins is going to have 4 big games this year, and I think the idea of figuring out when that's going to be, he didn't seem to have any connection with Patrick Mahomes in the preseason at all. We didn't see anything in the preseason that makes you think like, oh, wow, this is going to be a thing for Kansas City this year. Now, maybe they were keeping it under wraps, but Sammy Watkins on his 3rd team in 3 years averages under 4 catches per game for his career. He really is big play dependent. And you've got some other guys there that can make some big plays, like, again, there'll be 4 games this year where he just goes nuts, and I think it's going to be hard to predict. And when those are, I don't think it's going to be against the Los Angeles Chargers.
The Chargers are really good on defense. They're very good on offense as well. Phillip Rivers inside our top 10 this week. And again, I have mentioned this on the podcast previously, but I think there's a chance, based off of the current roster construction, that the Chiefs are a team defensively that you're going to want your quarterback playing against. They've got some young pieces in the front 7. And they've got some good talent, too. You know, Justin Houston's an established star pass rusher. But look at the secondary. The depth has been tested this year. So Phillip Rivers inside my top 10, as is Melvin Gordon and Keenan Allen. Get used to us saying that a lot throughout this season. If you have them, you're playing them.
I think Antonio Gates is an interesting one for this week. Where do you guys think? You know, there's talk about, first, we don't know for sure he's going to play. But do you think he's going to? I'm pretty sure he's going to play. And if he's there, I mean, that connection, it's like the muscle memory of Phillip Rivers throwing to Antonio Gates in the red zone has got to be like one of the easiest things he does.
There's no question about that. I ranked him fairly low. I have him at 17 this week, partially because literally he just got there. And as much of a veteran as he is, and I'm sure he's in shape, the fact of the matter is he's an older player, and he's literally been on the team for a couple of days. And then you think about the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs traditionally have been very stingy against tight ends. Last 3 years, no defense has allowed a lower completion percentage to tight ends or fewer tight end touchdowns than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Now, again,
Two
we just
starting
talked
safeties out,
exactly.
brand new secondary.
I was just going to say, exactly,
stats.
100%. Like you have to throw those out because it's an entirely new defense. But given the fact that it is an area where they've struggled, he's very touchdown dependent. Just I think this whole season, but especially this week. So there are other tight ends with better matchups that I felt more confident in on Antonio Gates. But certainly wouldn't shock me if we're sitting here on Monday talking about the touchdown Antonio Gates scored.
Close game, but I will take the Chargers. How about you, Matthew?
The line is what? The line is minus 3.5.
Chargers are giving.
The Chargers are 3.5 point favorites here. I will take the Chargers on the road at Arrowhead.
The game
isn't in Los Angeles.
No, it's in that. That's why the Chargers are
I'm going to unring the bell. Did I just unring the bell?
Works? Yeah. No.
So even better. Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers anyway. Give me the Bolts.
Stefania?
I'm still taking the Chargers, but I think Kansas City has a decent day.
I'm taking the Chargers as well.
All right, the Bears go to Green Bay to play the Packers. Our friends Golic and Wingo are already there. It's Sunday Night Football. Let's begin in Chicago.
Who do you like better? Are you a Golic guy or Wingo? I'm going to make you choose.
I kind of aren't they sort of in conjunction?
They are.
Yeah.
But if you had to choose, you had to be stuck on an island with one of them.
So Mitch Trubisky is a player that that's a whole different kettle of fish. Yeah.
I'll choose.
Who would you rather be stuck on an island with?
Trey.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, listen, I love Golic. He's awesome. I love his son.
Right.
Both Golics are awesome. Give me Trey.
I'd pick a Golic because they must have great survivor skills. But we've got a lot of games to get to. So
I'd be worried Golic would eat all the food.
Let's go to
Trey's a skinny mini.
There's a lot of food on every island. Let's begin with the Bears. First time seeing the Matt Nagy offense in its truest form as the head coach, or in its Chicago form, I should say. A lot of players to get into here for Chicago. Let's start with Jordan Howard. I've got him as number 11 in my running back rankings this week. The big question I think here is this. Do we expect Jordan Howard to be involved in the passing game on Sunday night? We love the rushing attempts and the touchdowns.
If you believe him, if you believe the head coach, yes. You believe him?
And they certainly made an effort in the preseason. They played him on third down with the first team offense. I don't know. I have him at 15. I'm the lowest on him of the three of us here. I still have him as an RB2, obviously. I need to see it a little bit. So PPR, I'm worried the Bears get down in this game as well, and they try to go more Tariq Cohen. Do they go more pass heavy? So again, you're starting Jordan Howard if you have him, but I think he's more of a contrarian play in DFS than somebody I'm building a lineup around.
All right, so Tariq Cohen, you just mentioned him. He's an RB4 across the board for all of us, a player that has that pass-catching upside and perhaps game script works in his favor. But of other pass-catching running backs that sort of have that role within their offense, James White, Duke Johnson, I'd rather have one of those two in my lineup over a player like Tariq Cohen. I just don't know how many touches you can reasonably expect from a guy consistently. He's 5'6" and 150 pounds. Like he's he's Darren Sproles, but Darren Sproles is an outlier, right? Like in terms of ability to handle a massive
I feel like
load.
I just want to see this offense because last year when the two of them were on the field with Howard and Cohen, you never knew what to expect, and the balance would sort of shift off between one and the other. And we haven't seen it in this offense.
He is very small, but he's also crazy fast.
Super,
and he is a mismatch
They're very different
nightmare.
styles.
And so my expectation is that Matt Nagy, and we'll see if it reveals itself in game one, but my expectation is that Matt Nagy is just like, look, when I look at the pieces I have to play with, this is a guy that I can do certain things with. I think he will have very specific plays drawn up for Tariq Cohen, and trying to get him in space and create matchup issues for the defense, given his speed and size.
My takeaway in all the Bears is like, I'm just looking forward to seeing them, including Allen Robinson, who's coming back from an injury last year. He is full go. And also Trey Burton. Like, I just want to see what Trey Burton looks like as a featured tight end as opposed to a complimentary piece.
I know that because I have Trey Burton in a lot of leagues, and I noticed last night in the Celeb League, you reached for him a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, my own ranking.
But he wasn't coming back to you.
He was not going to come back to me. But no, I honestly felt I really wanted to grab a tight end in that spot because the depth was about to thin out, and Trey Burton was ahead of, for me at least, guys like a Jack Doyle or Kyle Rudolph. Like, I'd rather the volume I anticipate for Trey Burton, which could begin this Sunday night.
I have him at tight end 6. I have him have not only Doyle, but Reed and Ingram and a bunch of those guys. So, yeah, I think we're all excited about Trey Burton. You and I both have him as top 6 play this week.
No need to overthink it with Aaron Rodgers, who across the board is number 1 ranked quarterback, even against a much better Bears defense. We do expect to see Khalil Mack play some on Sunday night, maybe a bunch of snaps. They're going to be great. I personally would avoid playing the Bears defense. I just like to stay away from Aaron Rodgers when I can. Just a little nugget right there. But it's really interesting in the Green Bay backfield. Jamal Williams, for the next 2 weeks, is going to be ranked likely in the top 25. That's where he cracks this week because of Aaron Jones being on suspension. So you are confident, Matthew, more confident than Stefania, and you and I have it the same way, that Jamal Williams is going to be the man this weekend, and it won't be a Ty Montgomery time split.
Week 10 on, he had the second most carries in the NFL. Now, that was because they didn't want Brett Hundley throwing it, but the fact of the matter is he showed he could shoulder a large workload here. I expect game flow and game script to be in his favor. My expectation is the Packers are ahead in this game, and so they're going to want to establish a running game here. I mean, you think about it, it makes sense. Teams ran the ball 48% of the time when they were leading last year. And so if you expect the Packers to be up in this game, which I do, I think Williams is the guy that grinds it out. He's outside my top 20, however, just because you just don't know if you can count on a touchdown given all the weapons they have in Green Bay.
Stefan, is your ranking more a reflection because you think we could see a little bit more of Ty Montgomery than some are anticipating?
It's more the Bears. It's more the Bears' run defense. It's really good. I haven't seen Jamal Williams prove it to me yet that he can run through a defense like this. And so just looking at the running back options, I steered away.
I'm not sure that a ton of people are making this decision specifically, but if you could have a second pass catcher on this Packers offense in your lineup this week, obviously Devontae Adams, a top 5 wide receiver, a top 10 wide receiver for us almost every single week. Would it be Randall Cobb or would it be Jimmy Graham?
Randall Cobb for me. I mean, look, here's a guy that his last 3 healthy seasons, right? He wasn't really healthy last year. He led the NFL in points from the slot, which is actually obviously where he lines up. The number 2 pass catcher in a Green Bay offense under Aaron Rodgers has always produced fantasy points. I mean, you think about the last couple of years with Devontae Adams, even though when Jordy Nelson was there, right? Yeah. And Jimmy Graham makes me nervous, very touchdown dependent as well, in my opinion, at this stage in his career. You think about the Bears, who only allowed 4 touchdowns to opposing tight ends. I think Randall Cobb has a better chance of success. Graham's going to be touchdown or bust. Cobb has a chance at fantasy success even if he doesn't get into the end zone. Give me Randall Cobb.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Although this week, I would not be surprised if Jimmy Graham bears more fruit in this game. I think a lot of what we hear in the preseason is just coach speak. It's nothing more than that. I have taken a lot of notes of Mike McCarthy and others speaking about the rapport that Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Graham have had right away.
Going to say.
Now, again, we've seen it happen before, and it's not.
I'm telling you, I was there when camp opened. So this was the big, people were talking about this, and it's as if right away, Aaron Rodgers was thrown to Jimmy Graham. It wasn't always clean. They were so, brand new working together, but it was like he was establishing that relationship with Jimmy Graham. I'll be interested to see if it's sustained, but I agree with you that this week, I think he's going to make a point of trying to get him in the end zone.
I've got him at my 7th ranked tight end. We'll see. Again, this is just merely speculating. It's week 1. A lot of what we're doing is just sort of forecasting for what could eventually turn out to be true. Football season is here, in case you missed it, and huge cash prizes.
We got to pick a game.
Oh, we got to pick the game. Sorry, I was getting so excited. I will take, the line here is minus 8.5. That's a big line.
It is a big line.
I'll take the Bears to cover.
Me too. I'm taking the Bears to cover.
Wow. Daniel?
Guys, I love the Bears and I'm excited about them this year, but until I see it, I've just got to go with the Pack.
All right. Daniel says go Pack, go.
Big line. That's
now,
a big line.
What I was going to say is football season is here and huge cash prizes are up for grabs at DraftKings, the leader in 1-week fantasy sports. DraftKings is hosting a fantasy football contest this weekend with $2 million up for grabs, and it's free to enter with your first deposit. Get the app or go to DraftKings.com now and use the code FOCUS to play free with your first deposit in the play action contest this weekend. That's code FOCUS to play for your share of $2 million. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT professionals can even show you how to use your new smart home features. Now, that's what I call warm-up service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy focus.
Very magnanimous of Matthew to donate his weekly salary as the payout for the DraftKings big tournament this weekend.
That's a good thing, Matthew. It's a big word, but it means good. It was generous.
Does it?
Like,
okay, good.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Big-hearted of you. I know. You're flipping through the calendar.
Dictionary.com trying to figure it out. By the way, I had a moment where I paused there, and
was it a senior moment?
Yeah, it was a senior moment, but it was a moment of reflection, and I have now changed my pick to the Packers. I'm taking the Packers, given the points.
Okay.
Wow.
Honestly, because you know what? I was just remembering that it took me a second, but honestly, Aaron Rodgers does really well against Vic Fangio. So I actually think they cover. I know 8-5, and we expect that defense to be really good, but yeah, give me the Packers at home.
All right, the Browns have a chance to make a lot of people happy and drunk because literally, if they win, the Bud Light is opening up the fridges, and a bunch of people are going to be drinking a ton of beer.
Great. Yeah, please, I want to see that.
I might go to Cleveland just for the celebration. You know I love my beer. My Bud Light as well.
Keith not here today. Maybe he's already on his way.
Oh, he's already. Keith, I have texted with Keith this morning. He is already in Cleveland. He is very excited about the game ahead. A note on this game. It is supposed to be incredibly wet in Cleveland on Sunday afternoon with a lot of wind, like 20 to 30%. Sorry, 20 to 30 mile an hour winds with 100% chance of rain.
Football.
Let's begin with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are, of course, recording the show at 11:35 is this segment on Friday afternoon, or Friday morning, I should say. Le'Veon Bell has not yet made a return to the Pittsburgh Steelers. At this point, it feels incredibly unlikely that he would play on Sunday. So let's assess this game as if Le'Veon Bell does not play. Ben Roethlisberger, home road splits, it's a real thing. Matthew, do you have any confidence in starting him this weekend against the Cleveland Browns on the road in a game that could have some really bad weather?
I have some concerns. I am at QB 14. So in a standard ESPN 10-team league, I'm not starting him. Depends on what your other options are. I will say that in games without Le'Veon, traditionally, Ben throws more and has more fantasy points. If you just sort of look at what his numbers are with Le'Veon, without Le'Veon, Ben plays better. But I expect the Browns defense to be better than people think they will be. The game is in Cleveland, to your point about bad weather. So, yeah, I think he's a high-end QB2 this week.
I'm a little more nervous about him than you are. I should say that my ranking currently reflects, which is at number 11. I think I'm going to move him down a little bit before Sunday. But the really interesting conversation surrounding Pittsburgh is James Conner. He is the presumptive fill-in for Le'Veon Bell. And Stefania, it's not just that they're talking about Le'Veon Bell not being there. They're talking about how great James Conner has been this preseason. If you were someone who rostered James Conner, you have him inside your top 20 for this week.
I would. I have him inside my top 20. I'd definitely be starting him as a number 2 running back. He's going to get the work. Like, we talk about that. Half the discussions we have around running backs are volume and opportunity, and there's no doubt who's getting the touches for them. And if this game is as sloppy as it sounds, what more do they want to do than run the ball? I think he wants to be able to showcase what he's been doing. He's been with the team for a year. I was with him in training camp last year when he was brand new, and they were raving about him then when no one was really paying attention. With another year under his belt, I'm excited to see what he can do. And look, he may not have long if Le'Veon comes back. He wants to showcase what he can do for the team.
And you can't put a stat on this or quantify it in any way, Field, but there's something to me about when you see the quotes from some of the offensive linemen about Le'Veon Bell's holdout and how they feel about him and sort of how he's been.
I think I know where you're going with
this.
It
just feels like, you know what? Not that they weren't going to try or be professional, but feels like there's a little bit of extra motivation to we got to make sure James Conner goes off and show Le'Veon
rushing yards would send a really strong message.
To Le'Veon saying we don't need you. We're good. I don't know. I feel like you get the sense, at least from the reporting, that the team and especially the offensive line is rallying around James Conner.
All right, Antonio Brown, still a consensus start at wide receiver despite the weather this weekend. Don't overthink that one too much. And Juju Smith-Schuster inside our top 25 as well. Really looking forward to him in this second season. Matthew, just a quick mention of a potential tight end streamer you like for the Steelers.
Yeah, I like Vance McDonald if he plays. Now he's been banged up this preseason, Stefania.
Yes, and we don't know yet whether he's going to be available.
Understood. But again, the Browns struggle really against the tight ends. They were 28th in the NFL against tight ends last season. And Vance McDonald, the last time we saw him, the playoff game, had a huge game. So I liked him as a cheap DFS play, or if you're desperate at tight end, obviously assuming he plays.
Last year, we did not have a lot of content surrounding the Browns on offense because they didn't have a lot of reasonable players on offense that you were going to start. This year's a different story. Tyrod Taylor, a top 20 option this week at quarterback. Matthew actually has him all the way up at number 12 in his quarterback rankings this week. Again, I think the weather, does that impact your standing on him this week, Matthew?
Not really, just because he's so effective with his legs.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, you know what I mean? And because you've got, guys like Josh Gordon who, like, it's slippery and you get to play with somebody the speed of Josh Gordon, a missed tackle, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races. I mean, bad weather sometimes affects defenses more than it affects offenses because you can't get as good a footing and you don't know where the offense is going, where a wide receiver is going to cut. Remember last year, DeShone Kizer had 2 different top 10 weeks against the Pittsburghs, against the Pittsburghs, yeah. Again,
yes.
English is my second language. So, to me, Kizer has 2 top, the fact of the matter is that if Kizer was able to get a top 10 finish against the Steelers 2 different times last year, Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback with better weapons. Yeah, I like him quite a bit. And again, the legs really make a big difference.
So maybe where it gets interesting for the Browns is 2 things, is which back do you most want to play? And Stefania, I think the preseason strongly suggested to me that it's got to be Carlos Hyde.
I think Carlos Hyde showed us something, maybe a little bit disappointed that he didn't stay in San Francisco. Not me. I think Carlos Hyde was disappointed that he wasn't able to stay. I certainly had some growth last year with the 49ers in terms of catching more balls. Struggled with it a little bit, which is why they wanted a Jerick McKinnon, but it improved his skill set that the Browns now have available to them. He looked quick.
Yeah.
He looked lean. I mean, I thought Carlos Hyde moved up in my estimation based on what I saw from him in the preseason.
I keep asking about the weather, and if anybody might be impacted by the weather in a positive way, it will be a grinded out running back, which is what Carlos Hyde can be.
Steelers allowed the 6th most yards per carry last season, by the way. You can run on Pittsburgh.
Josh Gordon and Jarvis Landry, I don't know that it's a conversation about picking between one of the two because, listen, the reality is not a lot of people have necessarily both of them on their roster. My opinion is this. Over the course of the year, though, Jarvis Landry is going to be the far steadier bet. And last thing on the weather, if it is as bad as it sounds like it could be, vertical passing game kind of goes down the drain, right? So,
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I was just going to say, and the short passing game becomes far more highlighted,
right?
Which is the Jarvis Landry special.
And they've already said that Josh Gordon, even though you expect him to play, is going to have a limited amount of work. He is coming off some soreness in his hamstrings from joining, he just joined the team recently. So I don't think you're going to see a ton of Josh Gordon in this game.
I disagree.
Okay.
Well, here's what I disagree with.
He's calling Hugh Jackson a liar.
I'm not calling Hugh Jackson a liar. What I am saying is that in his first game back last year, we heard the same sort of thing, and then he went out there and played a ton of snaps and did very well against the Chargers. And so my expectation is that maybe he doesn't start the game, but he's going to get more than enough snaps to make a fantasy impact here. I agree with you on Jarvis Landry versus Josh Gordon. I have Landry as a top 16 play this week. I have Gordon at 24, but for whatever it is worth, I have Josh Gordon in a number of teams. I am starting him across the board. Right. I believe he has that kind of upside as a wide receiver 3. I don't know that you have a wide receiver 3 with more upside than Josh Gordon.
I disagree for week 1. I'm fading Josh Gordon in week 1. I will be prepared to be wrong if that's the case. But like I said, I do believe that there's too much risk involved. That I'd rather go with the steadier options with the receiver depth.
I say Josh Gordon is a top 30 wide receiver in week 1.
I say Josh Gordon is not a top 30 wide receiver in week 1.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
All right, here we go. Picking this game, I will take. It is a 6.5 point line in favor of the Steelers. I'll take the Steelers outright. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Keith.
Wow. They don't apologize to me, but I think Cleveland is going to, this is going to work in Cleveland's favor. We're all going to be surprised and the fridges are going to unlock. I'm taking the Browns.
I am taking the Browns as well. Incidentally, it's just for people that are, I'm not a huge sports gambler, but the people, but I can tell you that, the people that study this closely, like our own Doug Kazarian, who does a great job for us, this line has moved, and it has moved a ton
in
toward
Cleveland's favor.
Favor. So because we do it with a game here, the lines are set at the very beginning of the week, and they're sort of set as the line. It's not a dynamic line because you're doing picks against the spread. The line has to stay the same, so it's fair for everyone, in terms of this competition. But, just so people are wondering, like, what, 6.5? Like, that's not the line I've seen. So just so you know, that's when the game comes out on Monday, that's what happens.
I'm also taking the Browns.
There we go. Bengals and Colts. This game is being played in Indianapolis. For Cincinnati, no injuries of note, but Stefania, we could see a pitch count of sorts for Tyler Eifert.
Yes, I think Marvin Lewis has already stated up front that they have concerns, just like we have concerns about Tyler Eifert's ability to stay healthy across the duration of a season. He's coming off his second back surgery in consecutive years. They eased him back into camp. Everybody's saying he feels great and looks great, but I believe he said they didn't want him on the field for more than 50 snaps. And that wasn't just the first time, but it's how do we keep Tyler Eifert, who can be so valuable to us, healthy across the course of the year? And I think they are looking at controlling his workload. You know, it's hard to have coaches stay to that. If somebody starts performing, and he might feel better as the season goes on. But I would say up front, they're very cognizant about not exposing him to too much risk.
Touchdown upside still makes him a play to consider, at least. Matthew, you've got him as a top 10 tight end. I'm sure it's all about that.
The Colts were a bottom 12 defense against tight ends last year in pretty much every category: fantasy points, touchdowns, completion percentage. And, you know, the way they used him in the preseason, I agree with Stefania. Obviously, they were very careful with him, but they basically said, when you're out there, you're going to be running a route. We're not throwing you out there as a decoy. We're not throwing you out there to block.
True.
So
never said that. Said total exposure.
No, exactly. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, like, they limited his exposure, but when he was out there, it was in a role that we care about for fantasy. So given his touchdown upside, give me some Tyler Eifert, who, you know, is healthy at least now.
It's hard not to love Andy Dalton as a week one streamer. I just think that, and it has nothing to do necessarily with some of the stats that you can rattle off from what the Colts did or did not do against the pass last year. I'll just go here, courtesy of OurLads.com. Here is the Colts depth chart at cornerback right now. You ready for it?
Yeah.
We got Nate Hairston, Pierre Desir backing him up. You got Kenny Moore, Quincy Wilson backing him up, Chris Milton. Not exactly a bunch of Charles Woodsons and Deion Sanders out there for the Indianapolis Colts.
No, it's a young and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's a young and
we've got someone tracking it. By the way,
I know. I saw that. Which is great. Whoever that guy is that's tracking it. I wasn't planning on trying to do it today. I'll try it at some point next week. But I think he said something. I was like 20 minutes in before I did it.
26 minutes. Took Matthew 26 minutes.
There you go.
Not bad.
I think that's improvement. I
Dalton,
take that as a win.
Okay. Andy Dalton, though, is a top 15 quarterback option in both Matthew and mine eyes. Stefania, a little bit less optimistic, but we think this could be a Colts defense.
I may move him up a little bit. I actually have him at 23, not 25, like you see on your sheet, but I might move him up a couple.
So we like...
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we like A.J. Green, obviously, and we also like Joe Mixon. Interesting player in this offense, though, Matthew, was John Ross. You've got inside your top 40. Dart throw territory.
Absolutely. I mean, last year against the Indianapolis Colts, Andy Dalton was a top 3 fantasy quarterback. Right, and we just talked about their secondary. We think, at least on paper, their secondary is worse than it was last year. So John Ross, who looked like he had a real connection with Andy Dalton, you know, very small sample size in the preseason, but we know about his speed. Remember, the Colts allowed the most deep completions in the NFL last year. So give me all the Bengals. Give me Andy Dalton, Mixon, AJ Green, John Ross. I have him as a top 40 play. Love in DFS. An Andy Dalton, John Ross stack, I think, is really interesting.
Andrew Luck returns.
Did you say that because you heard me say that? Why would you say that? I said that yesterday.
He did say that.
You said that before the show,
you said it yesterday?
Not
you weren't here yesterday.
You said it this
before
morning.
The show today.
Oh, my goodness.
Before the show.
I said that Andy Dalton, John Ross is the perfect DFS stack because of where John Ross'
I literally
price
don't listen
is.
to you in the pre-show meeting.
That's fair.
But
confirmed.
But considering I'm the only person that actually ranked John Ross, it may consider that I did actually have that thought prior to you.
You're right.
Genius that you are, Daniel Dopp, putting that thought into my mind.
Jordan Wilkins, Andrew Luck is a top 10 quarterback across the board for us. His return to NFL regular season action. this Cincinnati defense is pretty good, but just remember, in the last 2 full seasons that he played, Andrew Luck finished as 2nd and 4th amongst quarterback finishers. But where it gets interesting for Indianapolis is this, the backfield. And let's begin with an update on Marlon Mack, Stefania, because part of how we evaluate this backfield is whether or not he actually plays.
Right. And I think right now you have to presume that the likelihood of Marlon Mack playing is pretty low.
Okay.
This is not a serious injury. There's been no setbacks. I mean, I think we've seen the wording like trending downward for week 1. I don't think it's that. I think it's that the Colts are being very meticulous about not wanting to have a setback that they're then talking about in weeks 4, 5, or 6. So if he's close, he won't play. If he's ready, he will. And I think you could see this come down to a game time decision for those of you who are sitting late. But if I had to make my pick, my wager right now, I would say the likelihood of seeing Marlon Mack this week is very, very low.
So what do you do with these backs, Matthew, accordingly? Because we don't think we'll have Marlon Mack, but we will have Jordan Wilkins. We'll also have Krista Michael. We'll have Nyheim Hines. I mean, it could be any of these guys that make an impact. Do you have any confidence whatsoever in starting any of them?
I don't.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think they can block. My expectation is the Bengals defense will play a little bit better, although this, it certainly wouldn't shock me if this turned into a track meet. But I think, like I said, I have a ton of confidence in the Bengals offense, which podcast listeners know what happens when you go in on the Bengals. You know what they do to you. But whatever, I'm in on the Bengals this week. And so
I can't wait till Monday.
Right. And it's coming. And so my expectation is that I think this is going to be a big Andrew Luck game, big T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle game, because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively or stop Cincinnati, so they're going to have to throw.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I have Jordan Wilkins ranked highest. I don't feel great about it. I feel like I might have to adjust that before the end of the weekend. Jack Doyle,
but
T.Y.
even still, you have him as RB4,
right? I might have to make him a lower end RB4 than what I have him at currently. T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle both rank at 11 in the consensus ranks this week. You like both of these players. It's going to be a saturated target group for the Colts offense. 2 players, T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle.
And when you're coming back like Andrew Luck is, you're going to go to the guys you trust the most. And those
familiar,
2 people are T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle.
Stefania, you mentioned in the pre-show meeting, Andrew Luck actually made a comment about Jack Doyle.
Right. There's a little clip, actually, someone who listens to our podcast. Thank you very much for sending it, where Andrew Luck's like, I love Jack Doyle. Of course I look for him in the red zone. I'm always looking for Jack Doyle. So
when the quarterback says he's looking for him in the red zone, you certainly like that. One thing to watch in this game is who will emerge as the number 2 pass catcher opposite T.Y. Hilton. Right now, I like Ryan Grant, but, we'll see if Grant or anyone else emerges beyond Hilton and Doyle.
I'll take the Bengals in this game. I think the Bengals are going to win 9 games this year, by the way. Bengals.
I have the Bengals as well. Colts actually a 3.5-point favorite in this game.
Stefania?
I'm going to give the Colts the edge at home. I'm going to take the Colts.
All right.
If the Bengals win, it will be uber close, like a field goal.
I'm taking the Bengals.
All right, moving along to the 49ers and
wrong.
Stefania's 49ers against the Minnesota Vikings in San Francisco. I don't think there are any injuries of note, but let's begin here. We've had this debate
we
a
already
couple of
had
times.
the big one.
That's right. Jerick McKinnon, of course, out for the year, but we've had a couple of discussions this week about the viability of playing Jimmy Garoppolo as your starter. Matthew, make the case to sit Jimmy Garoppolo in week 1.
He plays Minnesota. Hashtag analysis. Thank you very much. Nice job. Mic drop.
He's Matthew Berry. He's Matthew Berry. He's Matthew Berry.
Vikings allowed a touchdown pass on a league low 2.3% of attempts last season. They allowed a league low 2 different games of 16 fantasy points to a quarterback last year. I think given all the options, given that you could go to the waiver wire and grab an Andy Dalton, go to the waiver wire and grab a Tyrod Taylor, go to the waiver wire and grab a Jared Goff, I am nervous about starting Jimmy Garoppolo in his first game on the road at Minnesota.
I have a lot of the same concerns you do. A deep, talented Minnesota defense. I can give you any metric you want, but I just look at the talent, and there's so much there in Minnesota. Stefania, though, you have more confidence.
I do. Maybe it's because I haven't seen the bad Jimmy Garoppolo yet, and I also have the memory of in the short and the small sample size we saw his performance against Jacksonville in the late last season. And you talk about a defense, and he handled that just fine. Now I know you could say, well, that one was at home, this one's on the road. I get it. Look, I'm nervous because of what happened with Jerick McKinnon. I mean, if anything was going to change my mind, it'd be that he doesn't have that that outlet there. I do think, though, a couple of big plays to Marquise Goodwin, and they've obviously developed a rapport over time. I think I'm going to trust in Jimmy Garoppolo that he's going to be able to have a strong game despite playing a very tough defense.
There is no Jerick McKinnon, but there are two other backs that are going to fill in, Alfred Morris and Matt Breida. Matthew, for this week specifically, you seem to have little confidence in either one of them.
Again, it's Minnesota. I'm a massive believer in the Minnesota defense. We don't know how this running game is going to shake out just yet. My expectation is season long, when we're sitting here assuming health, that Alfred Morris has more fantasy points than Matt Breida.
Yeah.
But reports out of San Francisco are a little bit of the hot hand approach. Breida's going to get the start because he's more familiar with the San Francisco playbook, despite the fact that Morris obviously spent a number of years under Kyle Shanahan in Washington. So I think you're looking at a running back by committee on the road against a very tough defense. Remember, Minnesota allowed a league low 1.38 yards per carry after first contact last season. So he's only going to get what's blocked. Either one of these guys is going to get what's blocked. Yeah, to me, this is a stay away, especially in PPR.
Stefania, you were in on Jimmy Garoppolo. You're also in by proxy on Marquise Goodwin, your favorite wide receiver from the 49ers this year.
I've already said that I think I have him as potential. My bold prediction was that he would finish as a top wide receiver. I think that look, I'm just looking at the rankings really quickly to see how much I have him ahead of you. 12 spots ahead of where Matthew has him. Matthew doesn't trust. I get it. It's the Vikings, same thing. But Marquise Goodwin is the fastest guy in the league. You know, he is an Olympian in terms of running. He's faster than even fast Tyreek Hill. So, yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Be fascinating. I'd pay money to watch those.
That would be fun to watch.
There was actually a conversation about it in San Francisco this year, and all his teammates will tell you he's the fastest guy in the league. So I do think that Marquise Goodwin is going to be the difference maker in this game.
Kirk Cousins makes...
Wait, hang on for 1 second. I've already blown the interruption thing. But did you see this? So Field Yates, while hosting this podcast, trolling me on Twitter. Do you see this? Do you see this tweet you just sent 3 minutes ago? So, ESPN sends out a tweet. ESPN launched in the state 39 years ago, and they have some. I assume
it's
that I think that's
funny,
George
and
Grande,
I don't even know what's coming.
Right, and then Phil just quote tweets it and says that 42-year-old Matthew Berry TMR was so excited the day ESPN launched 39 years ago. But again, like literally, I'm sitting next to him, and he's trolling me.
Please follow at Field Yates on Twitter. I promise you, it'll be worth your while.
That is a factual statement.
Kirk Cousins makes his Minnesota debut. We've got him at 8 in the consensus rankings. But Matthew, you have him outside your top 10. You're a little nervous about Kirky.
I am a little nervous about...
He's Kirky now.
Kirky. Just outside my top 10. I am at 13. He is traditionally a slow starter, right? 3 straight seasons, he's never been better than QB 20 in week 1. He's traditionally a slow starter. Again, it is a new team. It's a new offense. He came from a system in Washington where they were very pass heavy and they had a bad defense. They got into a lot of shootouts. My expectation is that the Vikings win this game and they control the clock and they're going to be very run heavy. And so in a game where they don't need to get into a shootout, in a game where Kirk Cousins, who's a rhythm quarterback and needs to be in a rhythm, and he's always started slow, even when he's been in the same system in Washington, he makes me a little nervous this week. Yes, I have him outside my top 10.
All right, well, I've been inside my top 10, but we shall see. I'm looking forward to the debut of Kirk Cousins, another player that, like Patrick Mahomes, could define this season. Dalvin Cook, some really interesting comments yesterday from both John DeFilippo, which might have actually been on Wednesday from the offensive coordinator, and then Mike Zimmer on Thursday. Stefania, what do you get the sense of about whether he'd be on a pitch count, not on a pitch count, sort of monitoring the role, usage?
Right, so all these different things, and here's what we're talking about. Running back coming off of an ACL reconstruction. The metrics over time have shown that NFL running backs do not put up similar numbers their first year back after this type of injury, with one big outlier in Adrian Peterson. We haven't seen enough from Dalvin Cook for me to feel comfortable that he is the Dalvin Cook pre-injury. I just don't think that's fair to assume that because he hasn't played enough. The Vikings are comfortable because they've seen it in practice. What I would submit to you is that you can see it all you want in practice. It's just not the same as in a real game situation. I think he gets to be the Dalvin Cook of old. I'm not sure he's that guy out of the gate. They talk about his Mike Zimmer specifically, to your point, Field, referenced his foot quickness and his acceleration. That's terrific. You love to see those things. Hasn't been done against an opposing team and for 4 quarters of football. So it might start out that way, but is he going to last the whole 4 quarters? I think Latavius Murray gets more work this week. And so that's where I'm not quite as high on Dalvin Cook this week as some of the others are.
You still got him at number 11, Stephania, so all of us have a lot of confidence in him, as we do with the two Vikings wide receivers, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, who both cracked the ESPN top 10 consensus ranks. Kyle Rudolph, number 7 amongst tight ends. This game could be very good. I am taking the Minnesota Vikings. 5.5 point favorite. So
5.5 point favorite. I will take the Vikings to cover as well. San Francisco, as much as improvement as they've made on the offensive side of the ball, their defense is still a question mark to me.
That's fair.
Yep.
Totally fair.
So,
yeah, I take the Vikings myself.
And even though Dalvin Cook may not get a ton of workload, you could see him break off a big one.
Right. No, I think he'll get some decent work early. I just, people should not be like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with Dalvin Cook if he doesn't look like where he left off last year out of the gate.
If you have Dalvin Cook, you're starting Dalvin Cook. I do think Latavius Murray in the Vikings defense or Dalvin Cook in the Vikings defense, depending on how you construct it, would be an interesting stack in DFS.
I'm going to take the Vikings as well.
Okay.
Matthew, if I wanted to buy tickets to go see this game, how would I do that?
Well, first off, you need money. That's
Okay.
the first step. And then you need to find tickets. And boy, oh boy, one of the places you might want to look is SeatGeek. From what I understand, it's the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every single game all season long, including the Vikings and the Niners. Whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, Secret Squirrel, planning a night out, or need to find the perfect gift for your host of your podcast and your TV show that you love so much.
I already got field.
SeatGeek
sorry.
helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. SeatGeek, designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. By searching multiple ticket sites and grading every ticket based on value, SeatGeek helps you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget. Plus, every purchase, again, fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Doesn't end with sports. SeatGeek has plenty of tickets to concerts, comedy, theater as well. Best of all, the listeners to this podcast get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. That's pretty good. Just download the SeatGeek app. Enter the promo code FFF today. Once again, promo code FFF for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
The Cowboys go to Carolina to play the Panthers, and let's begin with the Cowboys, where Zeke Elliott is the only player we have implicit confidence starting on this roster. He is our fourth ranked running back in the ESPN consensus ranks. Dak Prescott, a 2-quarterback league option. I still believe he's got a chance to finish as a top 10 quarterback this season, but we want to see it with that new look pass catching group. And Matthew, I asked you this. Is there a dart throw amongst the pass catchers in Dallas you would consider in week 1?
If I had to take one, Michael Gallup, but no. I mean, I think you need to see this. I think the Carolina defense is going to be pretty good. But if you had to pick one, I guess Michael Gallup would be my dart throw. If I'm sitting in a deeper league and I'm like, look, I just need like 8 points, Cole Beasley would be my choice here. But if you're asking me for a dart throw, a guy that I think's got the best shot at getting into the end zone, Michael Gallup would be my choice here.
For the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton is back, and Cam Newton continues to have that high floor. But it's his teammate who the IBM spotlight is on, Kyle Soppe.
Yeah, Watson gives Christian McCaffrey a 23% chance to boom this week and hit a ceiling of 22.9 PPR points. That would have been his second best game of last season. What do you guys think? Can he hit that ceiling?
I certainly hope so. I've got a lot of Christian McCaffrey.
Lot of stock in Christian
I got
McCaffrey.
a lot of Christian McCaffrey this year in many, many leagues, including last night in the Celebrity League. He was my first round pick. I love Run CMC. Well, you know I've talked about him significantly. Remember, Cowboys allowed the second highest completion percentage to running backs last season. Only the Packers were worse. So I think you're going to see a heavy workload for Christian McCaffrey, and especially in PPR, where I have McCaffrey in all PPR leagues. I think he may not do great against the running between the tackles because Dallas has a pretty good run defense, but they struggle in terms of defending pass catchers that are out of the backfield. So I like McCaffrey this week quite a bit.
Mr. Steady is Greg Olsen at tight end, and then Devin Funchess leads the way amongst the Carolina pass catchers. Perhaps there's some room for somebody like DJ Moore to make some noise this week.
I really like Funchess quite a bit. Again, 5 touchdowns over his final 7 seasons. Seems like DJ Moore is still finding his way a little bit as well. Remember, Cowboys a bottom 12 defense in both red zone and goal to go efficiency last season in terms of defending. He is such a big target.
I've got Carolina outright in this game. Stephania, who do you got?
I'm going to take Carolina.
Matthew?
3 in a row.
Carolina.
Daniel.
Line
Here
is
we go.
2.5, by the way, for,
Basically
on
a
Pigskin
pick 'em.
Pick'em. On Pigskin Pick'em. Just all the lines we quote are just the game on Pigskin Pick'em.
Moving along to Detroit.
Oh, you do it. That was good.
Somebody's
Monday Night
excited.
Football. New York Jets, Detroit Lions. First of 2 games. This will be the game that our new team, Jason Witten, Joe Tessitore, Booger McFarland, along with Lisa, of course, Salters, the incumbent reporter, will be at on Monday night at Ford Field. Should be a fun game for the New York Jets, though. Matthew, Sam Darnold under center. Does that, plus this matchup, make any Jets player startable for you this weekend?
I think you can look at the running backs in Crowell and Powell as sort of flex plays, but the rest would make me nervous, and I love the Lions defense as one of the streamering options this week. Like if you drafted the Bears defense, you're like, I'm not crazy about, starting a defense on the road at Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers. The Lions, I think, are one of those defenses that you certainly like going against the youngest player to ever start an NFL game in Sam Darnold on the road, Monday Night Football. Lions crowd will be into it here. I'm nervous about all these guys. In terms of the running backs here, though, Lions do allow the second most running back receptions last season, so you could see Powell, especially if they get down, getting some run here. Could Crowell fall into the end zone? My expectation is because of it's Darnold's first start, they're going to be one of conservative on offense. So I think you see them relying on the run game here a little bit. Those are the only 2 guys that I would consider. I'm nervous about Robbie Anderson. My expectation is that Darius Slay shadows him, and Slay has been, close to a shutdown corner recently.
Stefania and I both have him as a wide receiver 4. You have him as a wide receiver 5. Consensus rank for Robbie Anderson is 32nd. He's a really, really talented player, and he just needs one catch, so to speak. But even in less favorable matchups, or I guess more favorable matchups, he has had games where he goes for 2 for 41. Because that was actually the Jets passing offense was fine last year. For the Lions, Matthew Stafford inside our top 6 in consensus ranks this week. A very good matchup for him against this New York Jets defense that really struggles to generate any sort of pass rush. But the intrigue for the Lions is this: 2 spots. Is there a back you can trust and trust reliably this week, Matthew?
I don't believe so. If I have to pick one, I think Theo Riddick's role is the most defined. We expect LeGarrette Blount to be the goal line back, but you could see them giving it to Kerryon Johnson, or frankly, you could see them just throwing at the goal line, which is what they often do. The Lions have struggled to run the ball for quite some time here. I think given a week where you don't have any real injury concerns, where you don't have any players on bye, the only player, would be Le'Veon Bell, that you would expect to start that you can't start this week. I think until we get more of a handle on what Detroit is doing at the running back position and whether they can be successful at it, this is a backfield I'm avoiding, even in a good matchup.
For the pass catcher, Stefania, they got 2 great wide receivers in Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. But do you expect that maybe Kenny Golladay can make an early impact for this Detroit offense? A lot of buzz surrounding
Absolutely.
him.
I think that we saw flashes of Kenny Golladay last year. He was banged up, and I think that hindered what his potential could have been last season. But I think we're going to be talking about Kenny Golladay. I think he could move into that wide receiver 2 tier. I think he could overtake Marvin Jones.
Interesting. Overtake Marvin Jones could be perhaps overtaking.
That was one of my bold predictions in my column yesterday, which, by the way, is now available on ESPN.com.
I hadn't read that, but yet I came up with the same thing.
There you go. Look at that.
The Lions are favored by...
There you go. Anyway, that was my bold prediction, was Kenny Golladay outscores Marvin Jones.
The Lions are favored by 6.5 points. I will take the Lions in this game. Matthew, how about you?
I agree with you, Youngfield Yates.
Thank you.
Give me the Lions and given 6.5.
I wonder who Daniel's going to take, but I'll take the Lions.
One pride.
All righty then.
Might sneeze here. I got the Buccaneers at
Line
the Saints. Buccaneers at the Saints in an NFC South matchup. Let's begin in Tampa Bay, and it's, of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick starting in place of Jameis Winston. Matthew, I begin here. Is there a single player not named Mike Evans that you are starting on this team?
No.
Okay.
What's your confidence?
Let's go right here then. What's your confidence level in starting Peyton Barber, deeper league flex?
Yeah, I mean, that's what he is. I mean, I'm as a number 3 running back here. He comes in at number 29. Look, he was a top 15 running back in terms of rushing yards over the final 5 games of last season. I just think New Orleans gets up big in this game. I think they have to abandon the run game. I think, we don't know how much they're going to use Peyton Barber in the passing game. You're hoping he gets into the end zone. I think it might be tough. Remember, the Saints allowed the second fewest rushing yards per carry after first contact last season. It's not a great offensive line. Ideally, you're starting Mike Evans, and that's about it. And remember, Mike Evans should be shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore, and he struggled against him last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's very difficult for me to envision starting anybody other than Mike Evans, and even that comes with a dose of doubt, as you just mentioned, because Lattimore is the real deal. For the Saints, so many players on this offense. Drew Brees, you're starting him. Alvin Kamara, you're starting him as well, and same goes for Mike Thomas. Your number one wide receiver this week. He's going to feast.
Mike Thomas is going to have a huge game here. Yep. Buccaneers allowed the most points to wide receivers last season. They've seen Thomas 3 times. He scored at least 14.5 fantasy points all 3 occasions. No Mark Ingram in this game, so I expect an even higher passing game. It's in New Orleans. You're starting Mike Thomas, but yes, my number one wide receiver this week.
On Monday, we'll have takeaways, including who is the number 2 wide receiver in this offense, who's the number 2 running back in this offense, and how much of a role do they have?
Yeah, that was going to be. I'm curious to see what Cameron Meredith looks like. That's a big one for me, especially coming off the injury. Sort of seeing little hints of him, and then Mike Gillislee.
Yeah,
we will see how much Mike Gillislee, new to the team, gets in the role. Keep an eye on Traquan Smith. Don't count out Traquan Smith.
Yep,
I know you got Ted Ginn there and Cameron Meredith still finding his way back. Don't be surprised if Traquan Smith makes a big play or two.
It is a massive spread, 9.5 points in New Orleans' favor, and I'll still take the Saints.
100%. Give me the Saints.
Give me the Saints.
Who dat?
Taking the Saints.
Jaguars at Giants this week is in New York, of course. It's Jalen Ramsey. It's Odell Beckham Jr. But let's start on the Jaguars side. For them, Leonard Fournette, you're starting him. But Matthew, is there a pass catcher in Jacksonville you're interested in at all in this matchup? Because it's not a super difficult matchup against the Giants. It's just that there are so few pass catchers in Jacksonville now that Marquise Lee is out for the year.
We need to see it get sorted out a little bit. I have Keelan Cole at 35. Giants top 10 in the NFL in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers, but you figure they spread it around, and on the road in New York, you figure you see a lot of Leonard Fournette in this game. So I have them ranked Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, Dante Moncrief if you're picking from the Jacksonville wide receivers, but I think this is a little bit more of a wait and see.
Stefania, there are 3 Giants that are cleared, but I just want to sort of double down and just make clear to everybody who has been worried about them or might be worried about them in Sunday. Odell Beckham Jr., Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram are all systems go.
Right. Saquon Barkley had the hamstring injury, very mild in the preseason, but they held him out to make sure that there was not going to be any issue with him that would extend into the season. He's off the injury report. Evan Ingram was cleared from the concussion protocol earlier this week, so he's off the injury report. And Odell Beckham Jr., we've seen him. The only thing we haven't seen is him coming down in traffic. We will see that this week. I'm eager to see how he looks, but so far everything he's shown me makes me very confident in starting him.
I often wonder, what's the best analysis we can give when we have star players facing as difficult a matchup as you could find? Because for Odell Beckham Jr., it is the most difficult matchup you could find. Of course, you're still starting Odell Beckham Jr. We say this all the time. Manage expectations. We're just hey, maybe if you're an Odell Beckham Jr., if you roster him and you're concerned about the workload, spend less time focusing on how many points he scores and appreciate it's a really good matchup. I don't know. It's going to be difficult.
Right.
They're the real deal in Jacksonville.
And Beckham, just for whatever it's worth, in the first game of the season, averages under 10 points per game in his career. And obviously then from there on out, I believe he averages, I looked it up here. Hang on for a second.
Well, he was hurt last year.
He averages over 20 points a game.
Yeah, he's
last
awesome.
year. He's had a couple of years where when he started, he's coming off a recent injury. Like last year, injured in the preseason and wasn't great.
So we feel we have our concerns about the matchup, of course, but you are still playing Saquon Barkley. You are still playing Odell Beckham Jr., and I think that in a lot of people's cases, you're still playing Evan Ingram at tight end.
Yeah, the one place you can sort of attack Jacksonville, at least last year, was the middle of the field, and tight ends actually had some success to the extent anyone had success against the Jags last year. It was the tight end position. Look, but for me, if you have them, you're starting those guys, but I think they are nothing more than contrarian plays in DFS if you're playing that format.
Part 2 of our Monday Night Football doubleheader right here on ESPN. The Los Angeles Rams travel to Oakland to take on the John Gruden-led Raiders. And in this game, the Rams have a somewhat new look offense insofar as that Brandon Cooks is now there. Jared Goff, though, Matthew, a quarterback you have is a top 10 play this week because that Oakland defense is, very, very, very thin.
It is, and it got thinner when they traded Khalil Mack away. I mean, I think Jared Goff's going to have a clean pocket. Last year, tied for the most touchdowns in the NFL on the road, most passing touchdowns on the road, and I think Sean McVay has some fun on Monday night, displaying his new toys, So I think you could see Brandon Cooks have a big game here as well. It's a bad defense. It's a great look here. I think Goff has a nice game on Monday night.
Yeah, very confident in Goff as well. This Raiders defense can be had, but I think it's interesting for Los Angeles amongst the wide receivers. Obviously, Todd Gurley, across the board, a starter for all of us. Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Matthew, if you had to stack them up, because some people might actually be choosing between Rams wide receivers, how would you go 1, 2, 3 for your ranks this week?
I mean, I have them all within 2 spots of each other.
Okay.
I have them Woods, my little Cooper Kupp, and then Brandon Cooks.
Interesting.
But I would say that Cooks has the highest upside. The reason I have them ranked that way is, again, just sort of fantasy football, minimizing risk. What do we know? We know Robert Woods. We know Cooper Kupp have a role. We don't know what Brandon Cooks' role is in this offense yet. We just don't. I mean, we think it's the Sammy Watkins role, but could it be more expansive than that last year? And that was last year, where Watkins was used a little bit more of a decoy. Cooks is a different player than Watkins. But again, I have them all as top 30 plays. I think they all have big games. I'm in on Jared Goff here. You're obviously starting Gurley, but if you've asked me to rank them, that's how I've ranked them.
I said that I reserve the right to change my opinion about what happened with Brandon Cooks during
100%.
the preseason. We never saw him in the preseason, so we could see something in week 1 that could change how we feel about it. For the Oakland Raiders, Marshawn Lynch is back. We're actually eating some Marshawn Lynch Skittles right here during the podcast. Would you like some?
Yeah, you want me to open these up?
I've already opened them because I was eating them earlier. So you can have some if you'd like.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch, a top
Skittles?
25 back for us this week. My biggest concern with Marshawn Lynch this week is merely that this game could become a blowout in a hurry, and Marshawn Lynch less of a pass-catching back than a grind-it-out between the tackles player.
And just keep in mind, Marshawn Lynch limited this week with a groin injury, so it may not choose to use him a ton, especially if they're in a situation.
No, you don't get any
like
secret
that.
scroll. We're keeping them in here.
I don't get any. Will you just smash him against the window and I'll try to lick him through the glass?
If I chew loudly into the microphone, is that better?
No, it doesn't help at all.
Skittles are hard to chew softly, though. I've noticed that because they have the exterior, the hard shell exterior. So just keep on chewing loudly.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Anyways, Marshawn Lynch, a little bit banged up, difficult matchup.
True. The argument for Lynch here, and I have him on my Flex Radar field, is
touchdown.
Well, three. Number 1 is touchdown. Number 2 is knowing how explosive the Rams offense is. Does Gruden try to, hey, let's just go very run heavy and slow it down?
Sure.
And then number 3, does Marshawn Lynch, get a, given the struggles of the offense, could they lean on Lynch? That's sort of a way to attack the Rams.
Fantastic podcasting by you out there.
You know what?
Mari Cooper is bound for
Please mark that.
You cannot multitask and eat Skittles and give fantasy analysis.
You know
all at the same
what? That
time.
was like a walk and chew gum moment. Like you could not do it. But you know what? I was going to say thank you for all the time you took because it allowed me to enjoy the red Skittles.
Right, Mari Cooper.
There you go.
Mari Cooper.
Be sure to clip that spot and take it to the Museum of Broadcasting.
Mari Cooper is inside our top 20 this week. Our concerns are merely that it's a really difficult matchup, but you got to be interested in Mari Cooper this season. We're going to do a 2-set of picks can pick 'em because with the time crunch we had to bypass on picking the Jaguars and Giants game when we cut off our Twitter stream. I will take the Jaguars, who are actually favored by 2.5 points on the road against the
Wow.
Giants.
That's impressive.
Yeah, not often you see a road favorite.
Not often.
I will take the road favorite for the Jaguars, and so I'll take the road favorite, the Jaguars.
Same. I'm going to go
Daniel?
with the Jags.
I am taking the Jaguars.
Okay, and then moving on to our other game here. I will take the Rams, who are also on the road.
Also 2.5 point. Oh,
they are 2.5 point favorites on the road, and I believe the Jaguars will win. The Rams will win as well.
Yeah, I got the Rams as well.
Sames.
Ram it.
Bring it on home here. Seahawks go to Denver to play the Broncos, and for Seattle, Russell Wilson, a starter for us, except for if your name's Matthew Berry. You're nervous, huh?
This is somebody that
you got to stop beating the Skittles.
I know, really. America, and everyone internationally has requested that you stop eating for the rest of the podcast.
Fair enough. What did it sound like when the international people requested it?
It just was a lot of verbiage, a lot of different languages, a lot of noise, angry, hand waving.
On the road at Denver, I don't believe Russell Wilson has, in the last 3 years, Russell Wilson has finished higher than QB 15 in week number 1, traditionally. Another guy that starts slow. We don't know about the health of Doug Baldwin. Even though the Denver Bronco wasn't the Broncos defense of last year, they're still a pretty good defense early on in the season. Yeah, Russell Wilson makes me nervous this week.
I have a little bit more confidence, quite a bit more confidence in Russell Wilson because him with the matchups, there's always so many ways for him to get it done. The ultimate dual threat quarterback in the NFL. For the Seahawks, Stephania, Rashad Penny, yay or nay for Sunday?
I think that Rashad Penny is going to be active. I just don't know how much he's going to do. He's been a full participant in practice this week. Remember, he's coming off surgery to address the broken finger that he suffered in the preseason. And they're certainly talking about him like they want to get him some action, kind of see what they have in him. But I still think Chris Carson is going to be your main back for this game, but don't be surprised if you see Rashad Penny out there.
Carson checks in at 21 in the consensus ranks. He has a chance, I think, to really cement his status as the starter early on in the season, even if Penny does play on Sunday. Matthew, really interested to see how this backfield shakes out from a split carries standpoint.
I do as well. I have him as a low-end RB2. I'm a Chris Carson believer, and I think going into Denver, I think you see him get a heavy amount of run. Remember, Denver run defense last week, second half of last year, weeks 9 through 17, top 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. They actually allowed the 8th most here. Field Yates, yesterday on this very show, I offered you Le'Veon Bell and Chris Carson for Todd Gurley and John Kelly.
Yeah, I'm going to pass.
Wow.
Yeah, passing on that. I'm keeping Todd Gurley, riding my guy all the way to the ship. Royce Freeman is going to start for the Denver Broncos.
Twitter thinks you should have taken the deal.
Well, all right, cool. Royce Freeman should start for the Broncos this weekend. He will start for the Broncos this weekend. We have him as a top 15 play, another running back that we are excited to see make his debut. He was unbelievable in college. The limitations for him might be that this Seahawks defense has a little bit more resolve than we are giving it credit for. I still don't think the matchup is scary enough to me to move Royce Freeman outside of my top 20. Cannot wait to see him play. And we talked earlier about how the Colts depth chart at cornerback was weak. The Seahawks isn't weak, but it's very different than what we're accustomed to, right? The days of, Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and, Earl Thomas is now back. But still, the days of the Legion of Boom are a little bit different right now. So Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders both cracked the ESPN top 25 consensus ranks. I will take in this game line, by the way, is Broncos 2.5 point favorite. I'll take the Broncos. How about you?
I will take the Broncos as well. I was trying to find it on Twitter. I couldn't find it. One of my followers suggested that the Seattle's defense is the Legion of Whom?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad right there. Stefania?
I'm going to take the Broncos.
Daniel?
I think I'm getting bronchitis the Broncos.
Redskins at Cardinals. Matthews' team.
Show yourself out.
Yeah.
Matthews Redskins go to Arizona to play the Cardinals in week 1 of the regular season. It is the debut for both Alex Smith and Adrian Peterson in Redskins uniforms. Matthew, how much confidence do you have in Alex Smith starting fast?
Yeah, I like him, honestly, here. Again, I think it's going to be a very fantasy-friendly offense. Candidly, I don't think Adrian Peterson has a ton of success here against Arizona. They're pretty strong against
revenge game.
Run. Yeah, revenge game. Hashtag revenge game. Revenge narrative. So I think they're going to move the ball. I think they're going to have to take to the air again. Alex Smith always a threat with his legs. I like Alex Smith. He's my number 11 quarterback in the week because I think that's the only way. I think volume should be there against the Arizona Cardinals, who last year were in the bottom half of the NFL in terms of, deep pass completion percentage, total completions on the deep pass, touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. It's a defense that I think can be had, and they're not going to be able to run the ball.
Adrian Peterson, so along those lines, you have him at 28 in your running back rankings, a little bit actually higher than both Stefania and I, who have him as an RB4, which could mean more work for Chris Thompson, who is inside our top 30 rank. I think there's a good chance that Chris Thompson consistently leads his backfield in total fantasy points scored. For the Redskins, Jordan Reed is healthy and good to go for this game, Stefania.
I know, it's so exciting.
But you have him outside your top 10. We will see. We are hopeful that Jordan Reed emerges as
I just
the
want
most
to be really
reliable
clear
pass
because I
catcher.
know people know that I am always, bagging on Jordan Reed's ability to stay healthy. nobody wants to see it happen more than me. I would love, well, maybe you. But I would love to see him be able to put together a full season. It's just that the history being what it is not in his favor.
There you have it there. For the Cardinals, it's pretty easy, right? You're starting David Johnson, and you're also starting Larry Fitzgerald. So consistent, so good to see both of them on the field at the same time. Ricky Seals-Jones is Matthew's favorite dart throw tight end of the week. He's got him at 14.
If I have to pick a Redskins wide receiver, Jamison Crowder, who, plays out of the slot, obviously, where Patrick Peterson does not go.
I will take, in this game, I'll take the Redskins.
I will as well. Cardinals are a 0.5-point favorite, so it's basically
pick 'em.
It's a pick 'em,
basically. Yep.
So,
Stefania?
It's a hard one for me because I think David Johnson's going to have a monster game.
You're hopeful that, right?
Yeah, well, I'm probably playing against him in most leagues. I never did get him except for in one league, but I am hopeful of that. Let's see. Go to Daniel while I think about this.
Sure, I'll take as long as you need, Stefania. I'm taking the Cardinals. Stefania?
Yeah, you know what? Give me the Cardinals.
Moving along to our final two games here. The Titans at the Dolphins. This game is in Miami. For Tennessee, Matthew, if you had to play one Titans back, is there a clear pick for week one? Derrick Henry or Dion Lewis?
I don't think there's a clear pick. So
there's not a clear pick. I've got Derrick Henry as my 14th ranked running back for this week and Dion Lewis at 21. I think the reality is this. Yeah. As we have talked about endlessly during the preseason, when game script works in their favor, they can run the football effectively between the tackles and score or at least get to the red zone. As much as Atlanta did early on in that game last night, Derrick Henry is going to be very productive. In PPR scoring, I think there's a pretty good chance that Dion Lewis emerges as the number one Titans running back over the course of a full season, but Derrick Henry will probably be on the field for the first play in most games. We're also hopeful that Corey Davis can have a breakout year this year. So productive in the playoffs last year. The matchup is not a particularly difficult one against Miami. Let's see if that rapport under a new system in Tennessee leads to productive days for Corey Davis out of the gates.
I think the other thing that works in his favor is Rashard Matthews had the surgery on his knee. We finally found out what it was. Remember when he was absent from training camp for so long? And although he's back and practicing and looks good and will play in this game, I don't think he's going to do very much.
Moving along to the Dolphins, because Delaney Walker, you're starting, by the way. The guy expected to play, by the way.
Just very quickly, though, I want to, the question you were at, just to go back about the Titans running backs for 1 second here, Field. The question you were asking me is, do I think there's a clear-cut person? You believe there is. I have both guys as top 20 plays. I think they're very effective. So I just want to be clear that I'm not, to your question, I have Henry ranked one spot ahead of Dion Lewis. I think it's going to be a true 50-50 split here. But I think both guys are starts on Sunday. I just want to be clear on that.
Kenyon Drake, the only Dolphin we have confidence in starting in this game. And we hope that he gets a ton of work because he is so talented when he gets the actual volume that you want. I am taking, in this game, being played in Miami, the Titans. Tighten up!
Tighten up. Worth noting, by the way, Danny Amendola, I think in cheap DFS, if you're a deeper league and you're looking for somebody, Titans allowed the fourth most slot touchdowns, the ninth most slot receptions last season. Amendola should be in line for a big workload in a game where they're going to have to throw. I will take the Titans in this one as well. However, Titans are a 1.5 point favorite.
Stefania, what do you got?
Titans.
Daniel?
Titans on the warpath, fight for old Derrick Henry. That's what I'm saying.
All right, works.
Tighten up!
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
Hey, if you enjoy getting fantasy advice, talking about fantasy football, interacting with people, the Fantasy Life Facebook page actually does a great job. It's free. It's fun. Obviously, you're on Facebook. Go check it out. Give me a like. Here's me asking you for a like. Come on. It'll take you one click. That's all you have to do. Go to facebook.com/Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. So there's an S there. Matthew Berry S Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, facebook.com/Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. We do giveaways there. It's a great community. Check it out on facebook.com. Just like the page if you can next time you're on Facebook.
Last game, we bring it on home here with the Bills at the Ravens. Game being played in Baltimore. The Ravens are 5.5 point favorites for Buffalo. It's just one player, really. It's LaShawn McCoy, a top 12 back in terms of consensus rankings. But Matthew, do you have concerns because they just might stifle LaShawn McCoy with so few other weapons in Buffalo of note.
I have tremendous concerns. Like the argument for LaShawn McCoy is volume. That's literally the only argument. Is just, does he touch the ball 30 times in this game?
Yep.
Because he might. Honestly, we'll see, you know, how good is Peterman going to be in terms of just sort of dumping it off to McCoy. You would expect the Ravens to put 8 men in the box and just say, yeah, we'll take our chances with Nathan Peterman beating us here. It's a very good it's a very good defense. The Ravens, they're the number one, they're the chalk defense of the week, at home against a Bills team that in the preseason looked offensively challenged.
Great on that. For the Baltimore Ravens, going into this game, Hayden Hurst, their tight end, is unlikely to play, but other than that, most of the offensive pieces you care about will play, and we believe that Alex Collins is a clear-cut starting running back for them this year, one of the best stories last season, and I think he's got a chance to hold on to this job throughout the year. It's a new-look passing game, Matthew, in Baltimore. You think that Michael Crabtree's got a chance for a top 25 week 1?
Yeah, look, during his 3 seasons, so, you know, in games in which he got 8 or more targets, he averaged over 17 fantasy points per game. My expectation is that they move the ball fairly easily here. Look, the Bills have a good secondary. You know, it's better than they gets credit for, actually. I mean, the struggles are going to be on the offensive side of the ball. So, but I think he's got the best chance at scoring a passing touchdown, obviously because he's a big-bodied guy. Look, I do like John Brown quite a bit. I bet I'm the highest on John Brown.
Sure.
Love John Brown as a just, by the way, in season long, he's still out there in some leagues. If he's available in your league, pick him up. Trust me on this one. As long as John Brown's healthy, he's going to have a big role in this Ravens offense. They're really excited about him in Baltimore. But Crabtree's who I have ranked the highest. But those are the 2 guys that I like quite a bit this week. Crabtree and John Brown for the Ravens. I think they have a big game here, and I think Flacco plays well.
I think the Ravens win this game handily.
Yes.
5.5 point spread.
Which would play into Alex Collins having a big second half there. So I agree with you. I will take the Ravens.
Stefania?
Give me the Ravens.
I am also taking the Ravens. Can I ask, seeing as we're at the end of the podcast, who did you guys take for your eliminator picks this week?
Baltimore Ravens.
You took the Ravens. How about you, Matthew? Do you know?
I haven't made mine yet,
I'm pretty sure I took the Ravens as well.
Okay.
Daniel?
I took the Lions this week. There's one week I feel comfortable taking the Detroit Lions to get out of the way.
You know what? I did take the Lions, actually, now that you mention it. I did take the Lions. I was going to save this because I do my picks as we do them.
Some love for the Ravens and the Lions. The poll suggests that 51% of you believe Jimmy Graham will be the second best pass catcher for the Packers this weekend. 49% get Randall Cobb. We are back on Monday, of course, recapping every single game. In the meantime, follow Matthew Berry, TMR, on Twitter and Instagram and every form of social media, except for the Fantasy Life app where he's at Matthew Berry. She is Stefania B87 and on Instagram, Stefania_ESPN. I am Field Yates. And Matthew, not cool weatherman Keith, says the rain forecast is real. He thinks it'll be tough for Gordon to put up numbers and win Matthew the top 30 week 1 board bet.
So,
okay.
Not cool Keith, our reporter on the scene in Cleveland for the home opener, is siding with Field in this one. We will see. Certainly, I reserve the right to bail on this Sunday morning, where myself,
of course you do,
Stefania Bell. No, listen, the bet is the bet. I mean, I made the bet. I'm sticking with it. I'm not like you. I don't try to weasel out of stuff.
No,
I don't try to weasel out of stuff like you. But what I will say is that I may change my opinion on this if the weather is really, really bad. You know, we will see. Certainly, forecast at the moment doesn't look great. But that is a way of me to remember 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, Field Yates, Stefania Bell, Tim Hasselbeck, myself, and Molly Karam Rose. Fantasy Football Now. Come check us out.
Talk to you then.
Peace out.
Listen up, people. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know, our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcastopinions.com and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcastopinions.com.